How did an oligarch from Azerbaijan manage to build an empire that has spread to 40 countries? What is Alekperov's merit for Lukoil? How to competently borrow ideas from the West and implement them in a Russian reality? In this video we will analyze the history of Lukoil, its ups and downs, the personality of the head of the company Vagit Alekperov, and controversial facts from his biography. Less than 3 weeks before the end of the era called the Soviet Union, on November 25, 1991, the Council of Ministers of the USSR adopted a resolution on the creation of a state oil concern, which consisted of 3 enterprises engaged in oil production: Lengapasneftegas, Urineftgaz, Kogalimneftgaz. The first letters of these enterprises formed the name Lukoil. The rapidly collapsing Soviet economy and the gradual transition to the market required new solutions. And while in the gas sector the path of monopoly was chosen, in the oil industry the state decided to experiment and bet on a competitive environment. The ideology of unification in the rapidly changing economic conditions was proposed by Vagit Alekperov, the first deputy minister of oil and gas industry of the USSR. We will return to his personality little later. A year after Lukoil was established, 2 new fields, Vostokno Pridorozhno and Gridno, were put into operation despite extremely difficult, almost extreme operating conditions, non-payment crisis and hyperinflation, having successfully made the first 10 most difficult steps. In 1993 the Russian government decreed that Lukoil would turn from a concern into an oil company. The privatization plan is approved and the first issue of Lukoil shares is registered. At the same time Lukoil made another remarkable step, which is now taken for granted. But at that time it was absolutely out of the ordinary. The company became a pioneer in the social sphere by creating the industry's first charitable foundation in 1993. A new challenge was 1994, which was marked by the beginning of total privatization. Lukoil held the first privatization auction, and then its shares began to circulate on the secondary market. More than 200,000 Russians from almost all regions of the country became shareholders of the company. One of the main differences between the company and many competitors was its initial focus on foreign markets. Lukoil was not just present abroad, but at the earliest stages of its development was interested in working and actively promoting itself on foreign markets. At first these were the CIS countries and the Baltic states. The first major international project was the development of the Azeri Shirag-Gunishli oil field in the Azerbaijani sector of the Caspian Sea. Then joint ventures were established with the Italian corporation AGPSLA and Kazakhstan state-owned company Uzneftegaz. In parallel with its first steps on foreign markets, Lukoil was actively building up its capacities inside the country. In those years several large oil companies, Nizhnovolshneft, Permneft, Kaliningradmirneft, Astrakhaneft, Astrakhaneft, Volgogradneftobtrafik, and the Rostovneftechimport Research Institute, joined the company. Over the next 5 years Lukoil greatly expanded its influence at home and abroad. To be less dependent on fluctuations in oil prices, Lukoil invested extensively in refineries in Europe and the USA. Lukoil actively bought shares in companies in Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. In 1997 the company signed a contract with the Iraqi Oil Ministry for development of an oil field, but the project was not started due to international sanctions against Iraq. In 1998 the company expanded its share purchase territory to Romania and Bulgaria. In 1999 Lukoil acquired a controlling stake in the Odessa refinery. As for the domestic market, in 1999 Lukoil acquired 100% of shares in Komidek and the petrochemical enterprise Seredovorgentes. Despite the difficult economic situation of the 1990s, Lukoil began exploration at its own risk in the north of the Caspian Sea, an area in Russia that was considered unpromising. Within a few years the company discovered 8 large oil and gas fields in the area. Also notable is that the company crossed the ocean. The first Lukoil filling station was opened in the American state of Virginia on July 28, 1997. A year later the large-scale work was recognized with the prestigious International Award of the East-West Research Institute for Services, a leading economic transformation. In 2000 Lukoil completed the acquisition of Getty Petroleum Marketing Inc., which owned more than 1,000 gas stations in the northeastern United States. The global task set for the company in the new 21st century is to become one of the world's energy leaders working in the interests of the entire society. To achieve this goal, Lukoil is introducing new environmental standards, All Lukoil Group enterprises are introducing an environmental management system, which was certified for compliance with international standards in 2001. Expansion of territories continued in full swing. New major acquisitions were made. In 2001, Yamalneftegadabi and the Lokosovsky GPP. In 2002, Lukoil became the first Russian company to obtain a full secondary listing on the London Stock Exchange. Construction of its own terminal at the port of Vysotsk in Leningrad Oblast also began this year. In 2003, Lukoil acquired the Serbian Bioptrol and parted with its stake in one of the first foreign projects, Azeri Sharagunishli. New countries appeared in Lukoil's geography. The company signed an agreement with a Norwegian company in Iran, won an auction for development of offshore blocks in Egypt, began development of gas fields in Saudi Arabia, and signed a memorandum of understanding with the National Oil and Gas Company of Venezuela. President Vladimir Putin took part in the opening ceremony of a Lukoil filling station in the center of New York. In 2004, the Kraftsovsk oil field in the Baltic Sea began commercial production. In 2005, the company acquired Nelson Resources, operating in Kazakhstan, and put the Nakodkinsko gas field into operation. In spring 2005, Lukoil began the process of transformation from a specialized oil company into an oil and gas production company. Another important achievement of Lukoil was the commissioning of a gas field in Uzbekistan in 2007. During these years, the company itself is changing dramatically. In 2008, despite the biggest global economic crisis since the turn of the century, when the oil price dropped from $144 to $36 in just a few months, Lukoil transformed from an oil and gas company into an energy holding. 2009 saw completion of development of an oil and gas field in the Caspian Sea. The same year, Lukoil opened its first gas station in St. Petersburg, which allows both cars and small vessels to refuel. In 2011, the 1.5 billionth ton of oil was produced at the Druzhnenskaya Group field in western Siberia. 2 new science and technology centers were established in 2012 to strengthen Lukoil's position among the world's leading energy companies. In 2013, the Imolorsko field, one of the largest new fields in western Siberia, was commissioned. In the context of falling oil production in the region, this is of great importance for the development of the Russian oil market. On December 29, 2015, Lukoil crossed the annual oil production milestone of 100 million tons for the first time in its history. In November this year, the company produced its 2 billionth ton of oil, and for the 4th time it was named Russia's best exporter. Just like the country as a whole, the company overcame the difficulties of the 1990s, the crises of the 2000s, and the drop in global oil prices in the 2010s. Lukoil has gone from a local association of several disparate production facilities to a major international corporation with a 2% share of the global oil market. Lukoil has reached its 25th anniversary as the largest private company in Russia and one of the largest energy companies in the world. The company employs more than 100 people and its geography of presence includes more than 40 countries. Now let's return to the personality of the head of Lukoil. Alekperov was born in Baku to an oilman's family. I grew up in an oil field, in our yard. Except for throwing a rope and riding on the oil rocker, there was no other entertainment in the 50s, the billionaire said in one of his interviews. Vagit became the 5th child in the family, but he lost his father at the age of 3 and fell under the full custody of his mother. The family's financial situation left much to be desired, so everyone contributed. Zulika, one of Vagit's older sisters, got a job at a local oil company. Nelia, Alekperov's second sister, also began to supplement the family budget by teaching violin privately. Vagit supplied the family with fish caught in the Caspian Sea. After graduating from Shkola, he studied at the evening department of the Azerbaijan Institute of Oil and Chemistry named after him, Azizbekov, and worked at the Kaspor Production Association. Vagit's scientific activity did not stop after graduating from the institute. His 1998 thesis on the development of oil companies earned him a doctorate in economics. And in 2014, Vagit Yusufovich became a professor at Volgograd State University. Within 5 years after graduating from the institute, he rose to deputy head of an oil field, being a member of the CPSU. In 1979, Vagit Alekperov was sent to Siberia under Surgutneftegas. His new place of work becomes Oil Field No. 2, where, as a senior engineer, he is soon promoted to chief At the beginning of the next decade, Alekperov began to manage Kolmogorneft. From 1981 to 1983, Vagit Yusufovich is involved in Lyantorneft as chief engineer. At the same time, he replaces the head of the department. Alekperov's further career is connected with Kogalim. In 1985, Alekperov was appointed first deputy director of Bashneft, and 2 years later he took over Kobalimneftegas. It was this enterprise that would become one of the 3 companies of Lukoil. In the early 90s, Alekperov was invited to the capital, where at the age of 40 he was appointed deputy minister of oil industry of the USSR. There are many unpleasant rumors and situations related to Vagit Alekperov in the media and mass media. So many people have an ambiguous attitude to this oligarch. For example, the businessman's rapid career growth causes concern. After all, in less than 6 years he changed several positions and became deputy head of the local oil field at the age of 30. In Soviet times, such rapid growth looks suspicious. A story that took place in 2010 was covered separately. At the end of February, Anatoly Barkov, vice president of Lukoil, who was in a hurry on business, had an accident in his S-Class Mercedes on Leninsky Prospect and collided with an oncoming Citroën C3. The driver of the Citroën died on the spot. Her passenger, Doctor of Medical Sciences Vera Sidolnikova, died in intensive care. Barkov himself received minor injuries. The criminal case was not instituted for a long time. The recordings from the video cameras disappeared, and the woman from the Citroën was found guilty, despite the fact that a video of Barkov's Mercedes driving on the dividing strip and aiming at the oncoming traffic was leaked to the net. Then even President Dmitry Medvedev personally instructed to objectively investigate the story. But the case was nevertheless hushed up. Alekperov is also credited with dealings with Russian criminal groups close to the government, but there is no direct evidence of this. It was not without sanctions. In April 2022, after the start of the SWO, Alekperov was placed on the sanctions list of Australia and the UK. The explanation stated that he, while serving as a director of Lukoil, continues to profit and/or support the Russian government by working as a director, trustee, or equivalent person in a company operating in sectors of strategic importance to the Russian government. In the same 2022, also placed on the sanctions list of Canada and Ukraine, as well as New Zealand. The sanctions provide for a ban on Vagit Alekperov's entry to these countries, freezing of assets in them, and a number of other restrictions that, as it may, it would be senseless to deny Vagit services to the Russian economy. It was the progressive-minded Alekperov who, having learned the idea of vertically integrated oil companies from the Italians, proposed to implement it in Russia as well. A vertically integrated oil company, one that deals with the entire cycle, from geological exploration to retail sales of gasoline. Gazprom had already been created, and in anticipation of the coming capitalism, the state should have taken care of its oil assets. The state company Rosneftegas, the future Rosneft, was created in 1991. But, unlike Gazprom, it failed to retain ownership of the country's main assets, and the main reason for this was the energetic work of Vagit Alekperov. The oligarch has also made a cultural contribution. His hobby is numismatics, to which Vagit has dedicated an entire museum. The main focus is Russian gold and platinum coins, but there is also a large collection of antique coins. The Museum of the International Numismatic Club opened by Alekperov has about 5,000 coins. The most expensive is platinum 12 rubles from 1844. Bought in 2013, the Maison Palombo auction for 380,000 Swiss francs. Alekperov spends $2 to $5 million annually to maintain and replenish the museum. Scientific achievements were not lacking either. Vagit Alekperov defended his thesis on formation of conditions and ensuring sustainable development of vertically integrated oil companies on the example of the enterprise he headed. And in 1998 he received a doctorate in economics. In the same year, 2 of his books were published. In 2014, Alekperov was awarded the title Honorary Professor of Volgograd State University. Vagit Alekperov is also a full member of the Russian Academy of Natural Science. Alekperov opened a pavilion at VDNKH dedicated to Russia's oil industry. The pavilion building was built in 1954. Since 2017, it has been undergoing major repairs and restoration. The oil pavilion was created with the support of Lukoil. It is dedicated to the history and modern achievements of the oil industry. The exposition combines museum space, modern design, and technology. Importantly, Alekperov pays a lot of attention to charity. It was Lukoil that opened Russia's first charitable foundation, and Vagit Alekperov himself has said that he intends to bequeath his considerable share of Lukoil not to children, but to a charitable foundation. Since 2010, Alekperov has also been a member of the Skolkovo Foundation Board. In addition, the businessman helped seriously ill children and orphans from the Mikhailovsky orphanage. In 2020, during the coronavirus pandemic, Lukoil allocated more than 650 million rubles in 22 regions of Russia and almost $900,000 abroad in the countries of presence to fight the disease. In addition, Vagit Alekperov donated 50 million rubles from his personal funds to a hospital in the city of Usinsk. It would seem that in the 90s it was quite easy to get a share in a large company, and perhaps it is true, but to bring it to the world level and keep it afloat for many years, having overcome several severe crises, is quite another matter. Vagit Alekperov may be controversial, and it is impossible to like everyone, but this man is a professional in his field, has a broad and progressive view of the world and its opportunities, and this is what helped him to bring Lukoil to the level that this company can boast of now. This is the end of the story about Lukoil and the head of the company Alekperov. Be sure to write your opinion in the comments if it was interesting. Don't forget to give it a like.